Act. I want to thank Bobby Rush for his work on this legislation, as well as the dedicated staff of the Consumer Protection Committee. Calling cards are an invaluable resource for a number of people who make frequent long-distance or overseas calls. Students, members of the armed forces, and those whose family lives outside of the country regularly use these cards to call home. The cards are also popular among people who either choose not to subscribe to long-distance telephone service or who cannot afford to have it. They're a necessary tool for keeping in touch with friends or family members. Calling cards that provide the services that the companies advertise can save consumers a great deal of money when they call home. But the reason for this bill, Mr. Chairman, as you know and you've stated, as we see too often, a number of unscrupulous companies are failing to keep their advertised terms. I first learned of this issue about 3 years ago when I heard from a number of constituents who said that their prepaid calling cards were not delivering the number of minutes that they advertised. In fact, many were not even close to delivering the promised number of minutes. When I heard about these problems, I purchased a calling card to investigate the problem for myself. And what shocked me, although it should come as no surprise to anybody now, is that I found the exact same problems my constituents were having. One of these companies promised me a certain number of minutes, and I found that it was a complete fabrication. I didn't receive even close to the number of minutes that the card advertised. This is when I decided to introduce my legislation to ban this practice. I've read studies conducted by states' attorneys general as well as by independent groups showing that many calling cards provide far fewer minutes than are advertised. One study by the Hispanic Institute found that on average the caller only received 60% of the minutes guaranteed by the card. I recently read that the prepaid calling card industry takes in $4 billion a year in revenue, and if the cards are only providing 60% of the minutes, we can all do the math. This deception is costing consumers and honest companies hundreds of millions of dollars every year. Calling card fraud harms segments of the population who are among the most vulnerable to being victimized by unscrupulous companies only seeking to make a quick profit. Companies will target poor, minority, and immigrant populations, and they don't stop there. They've even preyed upon our soldiers in Iraq and Afghanistan. It's obviously unconscionable. In an article in Business Week magazine, the author detailed one example of a company that marketed towards Spanish-speaking consumers and it packaged with Spanish-language information. But the fine print that detailed all the various fees they would charge the user was in English. When confronted about this deception, the company simply said, "We're in America." They had the audacity to claim that even when they put Spanish-language advertisements in markets with Spanish-speaking consumers, they can hide all their fees in English. So in conclusion, this legislation would put a stop to a number of deceptive practices employed by unscrupulous companies. It would require calling cards and advertisements to include a clear disclosure of all terms, conditions, and fees in the language in which the calling card is advertised. Just like the nutrition information on a box of cereal, consumers should be able to quickly and easily compare two products side by side. I would strongly encourage the members of this committee to support this bipartisan, well-thought-out legislation. And, Mr. Chairman, again, thank you for marking this up. I yield back the balance of my time.